Yes, welcome to Satsang in meditation. Today I'm pretty much by myself here in this beautiful place, and I extend my heart and my love to all of you who are listening to, who are here for the satsang tonight. Why am I more or less alone? Because we are in lockdown, for those of you who are listening from Europe. And there has been an interesting situation where one man who didn't believe so much in COVID traveled from a lockdown place in Sydney into our area and visited many places, and wherever he visited, people had to go into lockdown. Now, one man can create a wave of upset, anxiety, blame, revenge. I mean, whatever moves in people's minds, and we think, yeah, well, it's justified because the person didn't consider anything, any consequences of his actions. Now, if we look at it in a little bit of a deeper place, this whole COVID situation around the world, I kind of hesitate a little bit to talk about it because the mind is so divided. But what I can say collectively, the whole of humanity, or let's say the majority of humanity, is in fear. And when I listen to the news, and we do listen to the news to see, if we can have visitors, if we can have satsang with people here or not. And it all reflects a mind that is influenced by mass unconsciousness. It may sound very radical, but when we look at it from the viewpoint of Lao Tzu, if you remember, it is really the viewpoint of whoever has discovered his deepest nature as witnessing consciousness. In the news, we always hear from the politicians and from the people who are kind of giving the guidelines that have created really a very controlled state here. We always hear, if we do the right thing, things will be good. And if we do the wrong thing, things will be bad. Now, didn't we hear that from the very beginning, since we were little kids? If you do the right thing, you're a good boy. If you do the wrong thing, you're a bad boy. And on the level of action, of course, whatever we do has repercussions. Now imagine a world where our parents teach us from the very beginning that who we are is deeper than right and wrong, is deeper than high and low, is deeper than love and hate, is deeper than light and shadow, is deeper than all duality. Everybody is somehow longing for the so-called oneness under the condition that oneness is good and two-ness is bad, which is another strange misunderstanding. Oneness is all is held The good and bad is held. And the strange thing is, when we feel held rather than partial, goodness appears, but in a very, very different form. Not goodness separate from badness. Goodness in a way that nature teaches us about goodness. Simply what is. So, recently a friend, Steve, sent me a quote from Osho many years ago, I think about 40 years ago. He was asked about a pandemic and how to deal with it. And he talked about the same thing. He talked about that the masses are caught in fear, and when you act from fear, you create more fear. So now there is an incredible run on these mass vaccinations, where it is very clear that they are experimental, non-approved vaccines, and they're not even vaccines. And nobody, or not so many people, actually take consequences from this knowledge, because the mass propaganda is get vaccinated. Now, I'm not saying it's wrong. Maybe it's a really good help to get vaccinated. But unfortunately, the reality that is obvious, that it's an experiment and it's not approved, gets totally put under the table. And this is what the mind does. And unless we wake up, and so I can see this whole situation that is going all around the world, unless we wake up and actually existentially realize who we are, not just as a concept in the mind, the madness will continue. So the good news is this whole wave of COVID, I would say, and the different variants that come up now that are more dangerous, bring everyone to the most important question, because, unfortunately so many, unfortunate people die, and we may be in the queue. One person coming from Sydney may be meeting in a accidental coffee shop or in Woolworth, in a shopping center, and suddenly you get sick, and then maybe you have a little bit of a difficulty with your immune system and you're dead. That could happen to any one of us. So it is really a time not to postpone the most essential discovery that a human being is capable of. That what is our true being. And that true being, it's a bit tricky when I say to discover it, because it's not a thing. Nobody has ever seen it, and yet we are it. Nobody has ever heard it, and yet we are it. Nobody has ever tasted it, smelled it, listened to it, and yet we are it. And that what we are cannot be defined through the concepts of the mind. Can you get that? Can we understand this? Which means it catapults us to a place beyond mind, but not outside beyond, because we're looking enough outside what everybody's doing, and everybody is asking everybody else if he has already been vaccinated. And then immediately there's a pro and a contra. And please don't misunderstand me. I'm neither pro nor contra. I'm here watching. And who knows, maybe tomorrow I'm going to get vaccinated. Maybe I never got vaccinated. I don't know. So how can I say this? I trust that whatever happens, whatever guidance comes for the person, if you like, will come in the right moment, or if there's anything that needs to come, and maybe nothing comes. No? Things are shifting so quickly. We had a few times decided to go on a ski holiday, first in New Zealand and then in south of Australia. And just before we would go, COVID said no. So we're beginning to smile to this, because it's just such a beautiful teaching to not expect anything and always fall back into the now, because that's the only moment we have. This moment we are alive, let's celebrate. This moment we can breathe, let's celebrate. This moment we can allow the love that we are, let's celebrate. This moment we can share the love that we are. What other moment is there for love? None. And if that becomes a wildfire, then what a planet we can create from the now, from the love of now. I don't know if it makes sense to you, but I'm not saying anything new. Lao Tzu said it 2,600 years ago, pretty much even clearer than I can speak. So I want to read a little bit more of Lao Tzu, because it is so relevant today. And for those of you who are inhibited to travel anywhere, this is for you. Lao Tzu says, and you heard it last time already, but it needs to be repeated. A good traveler has no fixed plans and is not intent upon arriving. Can you get that? No? How many goals do we have every day? And kind of identify with the goal, and then we are disappointed when it happens, not happens, and we are happy when it happens. And that happiness is always having unhappiness in its background, the fear of not reaching. So a good traveler is not intent upon arriving. A good artist lets his intuition lead him wherever it wants. So what does that mean? Behind me you see a painting from Osho. He was a very good artist. He had, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of books, and in every book he was creating a painting. And some of the paintings have been reproduced in Japan by my friend Gata Sansa and blown up into silkscreen prints. A good artist lets his intuition lead him wherever it wants. So my guess is Osho had no intention or plan what he wanted to paint. It just happened. And we know from our life many times when things happen through us and we are as astonished about the outcome than everybody else. And now comes the message to all the doctors and advisors for COVID-19 around the world. A good scientist has freed himself of concepts and keeps his mind open to what is. That's not the case, what's happening in the world. At least what we hear in the news, the mind and the scientists are full of concepts, and they get shoved down our throat whether we want it or not. And of course, It is out of fear to do the wrong thing. And then, so a good scientist at the same time is also a human being with consciousness. And when Lao Tzu talks about the master, he's not an outside figure that is giving orders. The master is the wisdom within. So Lao Tzu says, thus the master is available to all people and doesn't reject anyone. He's ready to use all situations and doesn't waste anything. This is called embodying the light. Now, again, this is a very beautiful teaching that Christianity, for example, tries to use, but as an ideal rather than as a discovery. No? The Master is available to all people and doesn't reject anyone. Now, the poor man that brought COVID to Byron Bay has attracted a lot of rejection. And suddenly all our heartful benevolence is down the window and we want to punish him because he brought us all into, a difficult situation, and many people don't have a job, and many people get poor, and many people have to struggle for money or declare bankruptcy just because of one man. No? Now, the Master, our witnessing consciousness, is ready to use all situations and doesn't waste anything. So we shouldn't waste the situation. And in this specific situation, how can we not waste it? By turning our judgments to ourselves. So the judgment would be, he is so irresponsible. And then we can turn it around, ask ourselves, am I irresponsible? Can I find places where I'm not responding from my highest wisdom, where I'm manipulative, or where I don't care, or where I'm careless? Can I find carelessness within me? Or whatever judgment else? No? A bad person. Can we find badness in me? If you look, you find it. The very judgment about somebody else that we don't know can be labeled as badness. And Lao Tzu says something beautiful then. When we dare to take a step back and let the outer world be a reflection for something that we can see inside, by calling back, for example, judgments, then Lao Tzu says this is called embodying the light. Why light? Because the light, or the sun, doesn't care on what it shines. It shines on everything. The sun shines on the light and the shadow. The sun shines on whatever it shines on. Good, bad, right, wrong, high, low. So when that light is embodied as consciousness, then we are available to all people. Sounds great, doesn't it? And then he says something strange. I'm trying to figure out what he means with that. He says, he asks, what is a good man but a bad man's teacher? So, what is a good man? A good man sees that the bad man needs support, like a compassionate friend. What is a bad man but a good man's job? So, what's the job of a good man? To be conscious, to be compassionate, to be present, to be loving. So when you find somebody bad, This is what Jesus means when he said, when somebody slaps you, hold the other cheek. I always find this is so stupid. Why would I hold the other cheek? It's a metaphor. It's basically, the job is to see whether I am actually so empty that my being has become compassion, or whether I'm still in a reaction of judgments. And there's nothing wrong in it. But seeing your judgment, you can turn it around and you can learn about yourself. And then he says, if you don't understand this, you will get lost, however intelligent you are. So here Lao Tzu distinguishes, because if you don't understand this, means if you don't use your heart's intelligence, if you don't see through the illusion of separation, then you will get lost, however intelligent you are. And that intelligence that he talks about is the intelligence of the mind, of the intellect, of the divisive intellect. And we are, especially in the West, kind of showing off with our intellectual knowledge. And the intellectual knowledge always creates a separation because it's one-sided. And Lao Tzu calls this, if we understand this, that a good man is but a bad man's teacher, and a bad man is a good man's job. That is the great secret. That's very advanced, no? 2,600 years ago. And now comes a very beautiful, now he becomes a tantric teacher. Forgive me I'm a little bit attached to Tantra. He says, know the male, yet keep to the female. Okay, what is the male? The male psyche, the male psychology, the male personality is action-oriented, is aggressive, is movement, is going for it, is doing something. And in the spiritual realm, the male aspect of spirituality is discipline, is meditation. Sit in your cushion, bear through the discomfort, go with it. And Lao Tzu says, know this one, because it's a helpful thing, but keep to the female. What does that mean? Keep to the inner femininity, which is a receptive part of us, which can open to something that is much vaster than me. The feminine has this quality of love, of presence, of welcoming, of opening. Keep to the feminine. My dear friend Melly, we were walking today at the beach, and then she decided to stay with her little granddaughter who was very sick. And she stayed with the feminine. She was just lying in the bed with the little 4-year-old granddaughter who was coughing and crying and vomiting and bellyache. And she was just for hours there receiving. So she kept to the female. And Lao Tzu says, receive the world in your arms. So Melly was receiving the granddaughter in her arms. Well, in a way it's a beautiful metaphor. Can we be receptive? And this is for my brothers, dear men. Instead of, especially in your sexual expression, if you move too much within the male and are not receptive, your woman will not appreciate. She will try and have a headache whenever you want to make love to her. She has other things to do, and you wonder in the honeymoon it was so hot and now she's not available. Well, it's just because mainly you're not receptive to her. You're aggressive to her and not have the balance to keep to the feminine, to receive her emotional body. If you want to have a little bit more teachings of that, just Google Rahasya's talk on Tantra. So know the male, yet keep to the female. Receive the world in your arms. Receive the world means to receive everything, not just the good, also receive the so-called bad, because it can take us deeper and deeper and deeper to the core. Many enlightened people came across this wisdom in their own experience. Remember Jesus? Jesus was still struggling at the cross, and then he kept to the female. Thy will be done. That's when he woke up. At least this is how I understand it. If you receive the world, the Tao will never leave you, and you will be like a little child. What does that mean? If we receive the world, if we receive every moment as it is, we are becoming innocent again. We recognize that this whole incredible creative existence holds us in its arms. And Lao Tzu calls it, the Tao will never leave you. How can it leave you? We are it. We are that immense, boundaryless, infinite consciousness. And you will be like a little child. So the egoic personality will surrender itself to the isness of things, and the little child is then just loving and spontaneous. Now, to make it a little clearer for the visual people, Lao Tzu explains it in a way: know the white, yet keep to the black. Be a pattern for the world. What he says basically is choiceless awareness. We know the white, and every one of us, or most of us, are attracted to the light because it's more the male side. Yet keep to the black, keep to the feminine, keep to the female, because the black is the absence. That's why the Essenes, this group of people around Jesus at the time, they invented what is called the darkness meditation. And I would very much recommend this. Sometimes sit for an hour in total darkness with the eyes open. Keep to the black, and the black outside resonates with the black inside, and you naturally disappear into nothingness. Be a pattern for the world are other words for be choicelessly aware. And Lao Tzu says, if you are a pattern for the world, the Tao will be strong inside of you, and there will be nothing you cannot do. That is the ancient version of creating your reality. There's so many workshops these days, how to get rich if you want to, how to become everything you want to be. Well, here's the answer. If you are a pattern for the world, if you allow the good and the bad and the right and the wrong, the Tao, that which is aware, consciousness itself, will be strong inside. And there will be nothing that you cannot do, because you are not even there. You are the Tao. You are the source. You are that through which everything flows. And to make it even clearer, it's incredible. He says, know the personal, yet keep to the impersonal. For those of you who have been doing the counseling training with me or other courses, you will remember the map of consciousness where the center is empty. So the personal is this wonderful rainbow, these 7 rainbow-colored circles around which are obviously our personality with all its unique aspects. And the center is where the person ends, the impersonal. So consciousness is impersonal. It's not good and bad. It's not happy and sad. It's neither this nor that. It's impersonal. Accept the world as it is. You may remember, those of you who have been with me many times, I often played a quote from Osho where he says, accept yourself in tremendous gratitude. Whatever is, and it cannot be otherwise. So don't fight with it. No fact ever creates any psychological pain. It is always our interpretation that brings pain to us. Pain is your creation because it's your interpretation. Change the interpretation and the same fact will be pleasant. Drop all interpretations and the fact is simply a fact, neither painful nor pleasant. And you carry the secret key. So this is the key quote for counseling from the heart. Accept the world as it is. And if you accept the world, the Tao will be luminous inside of you, and you will return to your primal self. So many thousands of years ago, he talked about the primal self, that what Ramana Maharshi calls the self with a big S. He calls it the Tao, and it will be luminous inside of you. And that light that includes the darkness just takes you back to your infinity, to your primal self, to the source of all expression. And then he makes it clear, if we understand it from this perspective, the world is formed from the void like utensils from a block of wood. If you have a block of wood, it's basically full of potential, and only your carving creates the tools. The master knows the utensils, yet keeps to the block. Thus she can use all things. So the master knows that out of a block of wood you can make all the tools. But he stays with the block of wood because that's an infinite, choiceless potential that can then be used for anything, any tool. It's almost like a Swiss knife with all these, it's like one tool, but it can be used for cutting, for corkscrewing, for sewing, for nail cutting, for many things. The world is formed from the void like utensils from a block of wood. The master knows the utensils, yet keeps to the block. Thus she can use all things. I think we're going to sit a little bit with this. There's something more coming, but it's kind of almost a new chapter, and we need to digest this a little bit, this darkness and light, this void and the personality. So perhaps we can sit for about 20 minutes, and it's good if we sit comfortably and let all the words, there's been many words, but they were all pointing towards the silence, towards the wordless. And perhaps we can allow the silence, the outer silence, to take us in. Deeper and deeper in. Let all the words that have been spoken gently melt in the inner space. We can call it the space of the heart. Remembering that the space of the heart is infinite space. It's the space of consciousness. It's a space of acceptance. It's a space of the mother that holds us. And many meditations, at least the meditations from Osho, they begin with the opposite. So all these words that have been shared, we could say, are the opposites of silence. So imagine you turn your attention around and go deeper and deeper within, gently penetrating all the layers of our personality, deeper than thoughts and concepts and stories. Deeper than feelings and emotions. Deeper than strategies and ideals. Deeper than body sensations and the breath. Deeper than the heartbeat. And deeper than all experiences. Rest here. Drink the silence. Let go. This is our home. There's nothing to do to reach home because we are this. Such a mystery. Now, in a moment when we bring our attention gently back to the person, to the form, to the body, to the senses, to the stories, perhaps we can remember that they are all held in the Tao, and a part of our attention can rest as that witnessing consciousness. A remembering that we never left home. And from the depths inside, we can take a deeper breath. Gently feeling the body again. Maybe a little stretch. It's almost like we've been resting in the depths of the ocean, and now we're coming a little to the surface and noticing the waves of thought. Gently held in the depths of the ocean. That is the whole meaning of meditation. Now we don't have a big audience here in this room, but there's quite a few of you joining me for satsang around the world, so if there's anything you would like to say or ask, you can write a comment and we will be able to hear the comment. Or the question. Emily. Hello, Emily. Welcome. You are in the middle of the fire. Huh?
She says, can I share an insight about the vaccine?
Yes, please. You want to share an insight about the vaccine, please.
it doesn't matter. The past 18 months I have experienced my points refusing to be vaccinated for fear of side effects, to recently everyone screaming and fighting fit vaccine. The reason is because the outside changed from no cases to our hospitals being overwhelmed and 300 people dying a day in Malaysia. So in both situations, I reached with equanimity. Reaction is equanimity.
The action is equanimity, which means the source of the action is not tinted by our own need to identify with good or with bad, with right or with wrong. The action is a response to the now rather than a reaction out of the known.
When no vaccine, I advised deep shielding for them.
When no vaccine, you advise deep shielding. Yes.
When they want vaccine, I try to get it for them as fast as possible. That is all.
Yes. And when they want vaccine, you try to get it to them as soon as possible. For the rest of the audience, Emily is a beautiful doctor in Malaysia. She's in the middle of the storm of COVID. And obviously there's a reality. 300 people dying every day is a lot. Not to mention all the suffering and the people on ventilators and the anxiety of the families and all of this. So when we remember that everything is held in the infinity of the Tao, perhaps it lifts the burden a little bit. And I'm happy you're sharing this with us, Emily. I can read a few more words from Lao Tzu to comment on this. He asks, do you want to improve the world? I don't think it can be done. The world is sacred. It cannot be improved. If you tamper with it, you will ruin it. How much have we tampered with the world and brought this poor Mother Earth into a place of climate change and of destruction by tampering with it. If you treat it like an object, you will lose it. And this is the dilemma with so-called modern-day medicine. The modern-day medicine, including the vaccinations and the COVID and all of this, is a medicine of war. It fights against something that has arisen from the same source as we. So we treat it like an object and we lose it. And then he explains what he means. He says, there is a time for being ahead, which means if you know what to do, if you know how to treat your patients in the conventional way, there's a time for that. And it's a time for being behind. And I think in that rush for mass vaccination, nobody wants to be behind and nobody wants to wait and see and actually wait till these vaccines are approved. So there's a time of being behind, of, slowing down. There's a time for being in motion, which means to do something. And there's a time for being at rest. There's a time for being vigorous, and there's a time for being exhausted. This is for you, Emily, you must be sometimes really exhausted with all the work you're doing with all these sick people. So there's a time for being exhausted. And then there's a time for being safe and a time for being in danger. And it looks like in the moment many of us are in a time of being in danger. And how we respond to it, whether respond from the infinite source, which maybe can be a huge shift in this whole world, or we respond from reaction of the past ego, and that will destroy us a little bit more. And then he says, the master sees things as they are without trying to control them. What could be more easy? To see things as they are without trying to control them. Our mind lives from control. She lets them go their own way and resides at the center of the circle. Here he says the master is a she. No? She lets things go their own way and resides at the center of the circle, which means she, or the master, or consciousness, resides as consciousness itself, choiceless. Whoever relies on the Tao in governing men doesn't try to force issues or defeat enemies by force of arms. That's not our reality right now. If you look into the whole world, whoever relies on the Tao in governing men doesn't try to force issues or defeat enemies by force of arms. Unfortunately, force of arms is everywhere. Now even the police and the military is controlling the poor COVID situation, the places that are in COVID lockdown. And they are enforced with force, and that is, of course, done out of helplessness because the governing people are not relying on the Tao. For every force there is a counter-force. Violence, even well-intentioned, always rebounds upon itself, which means violence becomes violence. So now I'm really curious, how this whole COVID situation will evolve, because there are such draconic measures and such a collective control of our basic human rights of freedom. I don't have a solution for that, but it is what Lao Tzu talked about 2,600 years ago, which means nothing has changed in people's minds. No? The master does his job and then stops. He understands that the universe is forever out of control and that trying to dominate events goes against the current of the Tao. I think we need to take a deep, deep breath on that. No? We are all trying to dominate events, thinking we know better than the whole. I include myself there. Because he believes in himself, he doesn't try to convince others. How much are we being, how much is everybody trying to convince us? Either this way, either the anti-vaxxers are trying to convince us to be against vaccines, or the vaxxers trying to convince us that if you don't get vaccinated, you're going to die soon. Nobody believes in the Tao inside. If he believes, because he believes in himself, he doesn't try to convince others. Because he is content with himself, he doesn't need others' approval. Now there's an incredible peer pressure which moves, recently there was an article about Malambimbi, which our town nearby, which is kind of famous for being loose and natural and a little bit of like a alternative hippie place. And the article in the newspaper mentioned that beautiful Malambimbi, where everybody was kind of relaxed and open and cooperative and compassionate with each other, has become a divided place because there are vaxxers and anti-vaxxers, and and people have such strong opinions that they forget that they're part of one consciousness. No? Because he's content with himself, he doesn't need others' approval. How much are we looking for others' approvals? How little do we look inside and actually see the splendor of who we are? And Lao Tzu says, because he accepts himself, the whole world accepts him. Whatever we give out comes back.
Family, as you were talking, and teaching, she said 3 more things.
Yeah.
She says, so no need to worry, I will it will be as it will be.
No need to worry, it will be as it will be. It is already as it is. Yeah, so true.
And she just said, commented that, wow, exactly, great teaching.
Yeah.
When you were in the middle of the teaching there. And she just wanted to explain that her patients are immune compromised patients.
Yeah, Emily's patients are immune compromised patients. So what does that mean? No? It is such a tricky thing. No? So the immune system is what keeps us healthy. Are we actually weakening the immune system through the vaccination, or are we strengthening it? If you look a little bit into the science, the vaccines are creating the spike proteins that are actually toxins, and then the body is trained to get antibodies against these toxins that it itself has created. You don't need to be an absolute scientist to see that this is a very, very tricky and unsafe situation, which has not been tested enough. So I can only pray that it's okay, that the body has its own intelligence and responds in the right way. So we are in an incredible time. I don't want to go too much into facts and details because the facts are all tinted by our own mind. I rather want to zoom out into this situation that everybody is in now. I had a longer talk with a friend in Sydney that is so confused about what to do or not do, how to be or what be, how to live your life so that you are safe. Well, how I understand it more and more and more is there is no outer safety. Osho talked about it all the time. Everything in our, personality is looking for safety. The car's getting safer, the airplane's getting safer, the house is getting safer. And insecurity persists because we could be run over the next moment. We could die by COVID in the next moment. Is there any safety? No. Can we relax into the insecurity of being? Can we allow this moment to be so important that all that is left is gratitude and love that in this moment we are alive, and realize that we cannot really directly do anything about it. Life lives us. The Tao lives us every moment. Can we relax into that? Can we allow the personality that is trembling of fear to disappear? Can we allow it to kind of take backstage? And allow that which is aware take front stage? I'm sitting here with as many questions as you have. We're in the same boat. We're held by the same space. We are lit up by the same light. We are disappearing in the same darkness. How beautiful. And we are here. I think we let it be for today, unless there's an important question that jumps up. Something just came.
That's from Nicole. Armit, she says, so beautiful we are here.
It is so beautiful that we are here. All that's left is gratitude. And I heard somebody say that gratitude is the most precious experience we can have in this life. And it doesn't need to be for anything special, just being here.
It's a good immune booster.
That's right, it's a good immune booster. Somebody wrote that?
No.
No. It's a good immune booster. It's the best immune booster. So, beloved friends, we have it a little shorter tonight. And really, I send all of us many, many blessings and much love. And trust that existence doesn't make any mistakes. We are all held, whether we like it or not, whether we know it or not. We're already held in grace, in gratitude, in love, in joy, in peace, in silence. Namaste. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. So if everything goes well, we will have another satsang just, online. Or if the lockdown ends, maybe we have a few more friends here. And I wish you all very, very well. Stay present. Don't believe the mind. Let the mind do its thing. And rest at the center. Rest as that which is aware. Thank you for tonight. Namaste.